Hi everyone, Liz here from Gather No Moss. I just wanted to pop on very quickly, really. Not a planned vlog at all, but I wanted to let you know what happened here yesterday in Spain. Part of our life in Spain, it's part of everything that we have to handle. But we had a complete power outage for 12 hours yesterday. Totally unexpected. And during that 12 hours, there was no communication whatsoever. We didn't know what was going on. So obviously, it affected loads of different things. So we had no power, we had no Wi-Fi, we had no means of communication, no TVs, we didn't have a radio. Everything was electric that we needed things for. So really and truly, we were out on our own, just with some of the neighbours that were around us, chatting and seeing, but nobody knew anything. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we handled it, what went on, and what we know, which is still all a little bit up in the air, but I thought you would want to know. So not a great big long vlog, but just a little update on our life in Spain. Okay, Colin, so I thought you'd let us know a little bit about what happened yesterday and tell everyone what was going on yesterday.
Yeah, sure, I'll run you through it briefly. So yesterday, around about 12:30 in the afternoon, I noticed that there was no lights working, and I tried various appliances and everything off, and your first thought, being out here, is that, something wrong with the fuse box, or perhaps a local power cut. So I went to my phone to see if there'd been any chats around on Facebook or wherever, to see if there'd been anything news about it, and I noticed no internet. I then noticed there was no phone signal at the top right of the phone. I thought, this looks a bit serious, and waited for a little while for stuff to come back on, as it often does. Nothing did. So we all decided to take a little bit of a drive around.
I think we felt a bit panicky, didn't we, as well?
Well, I think it's a different range, isn't it? I mean, it's quite exciting when stuff like this happens. A little bit, what's going on? A little bit. I wasn't at that stage. I didn't feel worried or panicky.
What did you see when we went out in the car then?
Yeah, well, we stopped first of all at the local supermarket, and the lady there that we stopped has said, it's a slight exaggeration, so it's out all over Europe, which is a bit worrying. But we thought that's not true. So we had a little run down from where we live on an urbanisation into the local town. We noticed at the petrol stations that all the pumps were coned off, so we thought, they're not working. And then we got into town and noticed everything was shut down.
It's like a ghost town, really.
A little bit like a ghost town, yeah. People obviously staying in. ATMs were all off.
Yeah, people queued up at those, weren't they? But for no reason, they weren't going to get.
I think they were waiting. Yeah, lots of people hanging around on street corners, wondering what's going on. And so when you start to think, we can't buy fuel, we can't get cash out, you start to think this is a bit serious. And we had the local radio on, didn't we? And between us, we managed to ascertain.
It
was all Spanish. That there was some sort of estado de emergencia or something, some sort of state of emergency, something pretty serious had happened. And then you start to think, oh my word, let's get some water. So we headed for the local supermarket, and they were running on a backup generator, so all their chilled and frozen stuff was closed off officially, and they were just selling bits of water, and their tills, although they were taking cards at this point, were running on backup batteries and generators. A slight, I wouldn't call it a panic, but people were starting to pile water into their shopping trolleys, things like that. Just the start of something,
Would you say that was mainly locals, or was it more?
A bit of both. So in the big one we stopped at, the Mercadona down here, that was locals, and then we got, of course, drove back home. Thought we better start conserving some fuel here, because I had half a tank, but I thought, how long is this going to be out for with no fuel available? And went to the local supermarket. To be honest, we went for beer and wine as much as water, because we were running out of that. And luckily that was plenty of that. But there were people locally starting to pile their trolleys with the last remnants of water.
Yeah,
so that was a bit silly.
We still didn't find out anything, did we, for ages and ages? So Still didn't know what was going on, and we just made food. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, just on the first point, it's very difficult when you're so used to having your phone with me, not to be able to get in touch with anyone or anything to understand what's going on. You really can feel quite isolated. Yeah, but on the food, luckily we have our cooker is electric in the house, in the villa, but we have a barbecue out here. It is gas powered, and there's a ring on the side of it, so we're pretty well off for that. So I managed to sort of we did some food on the gas ring, and I just cooked burgers on the barbecue, and we had a few drinks with that.
We had plenty, didn't we, really, to eat and drink.
Oh yeah.
And then we've got a lovely outside fire, so that was nice.
Yeah.
Luckily, we've only just bought that one, and we were able to light that up just to warm up, because we've got a bit of a cool breeze coming in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't cold as such, was it?
No.
But we did have to sort of light the fire.
The other thing I'd mention, it's a feature here as well anyway, everybody decorates their gardens, as we do, with a lot of solar lighting, but we also have in the pergola some pretty powerful solar powered lights, which you may just see them behind you, which help to illuminate underneath here.
Yeah.
I also have an old camping a wind up lantern. Some people might have heard of those wind up radios. So we wound that up and we used that for sort of getting in and out of the house, because of course no street lighting, no house lighting, it's pretty dark once you're in the house. Last
Stars
night
were amazing last
yeah,
night, weren't
at least you could see the stars nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was, I wouldn't say it ever got into a panic, but people were, I think, starting to think, hang on, what's happened? How long will this go on? And the not knowing is not being able to find out what's happening is a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Yes. And then we were just literally going to bed about 12 o'clock at night, wasn't it? And all of a sudden everything all popped back on again, didn't it?
I noticed electricity came on, so lights came on and various things came on, but I think it took a little while longer for the internet to come back. So I think all the networks were starting up, nationwide, and powering up with the local masts and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So we'll come back a bit later on just to tell you what we've heard happened. But I just want to take and pass it over to Chris now, who was actually on holiday here and due to be going home yesterday. So that's quite an interesting story now. Yeah. So this is my brother Chris, who's just been on holiday for a few days and was due to be leaving yesterday. So he'll let you know what happened with him and with regards to his flight.
Well, I think it all sort of started off when I went to check in and couldn't. Obviously noticing that no connectivity with any form whatsoever. Obviously talked to Colin and all our phones were out, so it was a little bit of a concern at that stage, because obviously you've got no messages coming through to tell you if your flight's still going or not going, and nobody to ring or contact in order to try and find that information out. So basically you're just left in the lurch. So obviously we went to see if it was just localized and had a bit of a drive around, and when we saw the extent of it, it was taking the decision that it probably wouldn't be worthwhile making a journey all the way to Mercia Airport in order to find that maybe the flight has either turned back or is not going to actually be taking any customers, anything really. So that, and coupled with the fact that we weren't sure whether or not they have enough petrol to actually get back to Campasol, the decision was made really not to go, because it didn't make any sense to go. So when everything did come back on, well, I think my phone started powering up at about 4 a.m. I then had to frantically see if I could actually get a flight back today, which I've luckily enough been able to obtain at great expense.
Well, I was going to ask you how much that was.
I wouldn't like to tell you, because obviously last minute sort of things with Ryanair are always going to be expensive, but needs must. If you're needing to get back to work, and leave the life in Spain, then you've got to do these things. So again, trying to contact my boss, trying to contact the guys at my work in order to let them know all this is happening, I couldn't really do. So I just set up some messages to send as soon as my phone came back up. So everyone was aware of that around about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So at least everyone was informed, and I was able to let my family know that everything was okay. But again, it's just the not knowing, because we didn't know what had happened. That's the thing, which is a bit concerning. But ho hum, another day. And yeah, we were running out of provisions of beer and wine. So yeah, that was necessary. We did pick up some water on the way out, thinking maybe that might be a good idea as well. And cheese as well. Cheese was absolutely essential as well on the purchases.
And we played some games, didn't we, in the afternoon to try and...
Yeah, we started off in the daylight, and then we tried it with candlelight, but there was too much cheating going on. So we decided that we'd continue it this morning.
I think our policy was just not to panic, though. Even though you knew you needed to get back to the UK, there's no point panicking, is there?
Well, you can't do anything about it.
No.
And obviously, not knowing is probably the worst bit about everything.
Yeah.
But if you can't do anything about it, what are you going to do? You're fretting over nothing.
Thank you very much.
Right, you're very welcome.
So, Colin, what do we actually know about what happened yesterday, in those 12 hours now?
Precious little, really. But, I mean, from the news reports, I'm sure people have seen, we think it's something to do with the connection, the interconnect between France and Spain is linked to the European-wide electricity grid, and we think one of the major links between, as I say, France, which is why some parts of southern France were affected apparently, that's failed somehow. The Spanish government representative is saying that he thinks that that may be just a symptom of the problem rather than the cause of the problem itself. But it's fair to say it's still being investigated, and we don't know the real detailed cause of what's caused it. What's worrying, I think, and what I'm sure they'll look at, is the fact that in an instance the majority of the Spanish Iberian mainland, Spain and Portugal, was cut off from all electrical power. You'd have thought there'd be some sort of contingency in place to help cope with that. Hospitals and supermarkets have some backup generation. Here, of course, they do. But yeah, quite alarming, quite surprising to think, But I'm sure they'll now look at that and get all that sorted over with infrastructure over the coming
vet
years.
was saying to us today, because we had to take Gus into the vets, and she was saying about the backup at the hospital. She had to take her dad to the hospital, didn't she? But there'd been a generator there for backup. But yeah, I think they're going to be having to do more places with backup generators in case anything happens like that in the future. What about us? I think we managed all right. Do you?
Yeah, we're okay, because we've got. If it had been middle of winter, it might have been different. But we've got a good bit of solar power here. People have solar panels as well, so they've got some link in there. Although a lot of those are electronically managed, and those systems were out, so you couldn't access that. But things like solar powered lighting. We have gas water heating here. We have a gas barbecue that we can cook from. It's not. It's not.
The water heater's gas as well.
The water heater's gas, so we've got hot water.
I think said, what do you think that we would do differently than maybe?
I think we might start looking for. I think I saw a couple of years back things on Amazon, and other outlets are available, like wind-up radios. I've got a wind-up lantern that you just basically a little dynamo in there. I look for a wind-up radio, so at least then we can hear what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Some other form of power. I'm not sure I'd go as far as keeping a diesel generator for something that happens. I think there was a news report that says this happens once every 50, if not once every 100 years. So I'm not going to bother with that at this time of life.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Cheers. So I hope that's let people know what it was like for us, what we'd perhaps do in the future. And really, if you're thinking of coming to live in Spain, it's just something that you probably have to get used to a little bit, particularly in the southeast of Spain where we are, and we are quite out of the main cities, but then it did all go off in the main cities as well. So it's just something that may happen, and really it's try and keep a few stocks of things in, but not get panicky about everything, and just try and keep enjoying your life and keep enjoying going, because it all worked itself out, and we didn't find that we suffered at all throughout that. So